So I have acquired a 2016 Nissan GT-R, and it is absolutely filthy. And it is finally the day, the car is registered, it is officially mine, and I am going to wash it from end to end and finally kind of bring out that beautiful white paint that has been kind of hidden under a layer of dirt. So let's jump into it and let's wash and talk. The interesting thing about this car is it came from a consignment place in Illinois, and I had found it on cars.com maybe 3 months ago, and there wasn't really any information on the car, and it seemed like a really weird kind of arrangement, so I kind of steered clear from it for a while, but I bookmarked the page, and I came back to it maybe a month or so ago, and I was like, you know what, this car seems like it's in really good shape. I'm going to reach out to the consignment place. And I had a bunch of questions, obviously, about the mods and the maintenance of the car and all that good stuff. And I was just like, can I just talk to the owner? I don't like being working through a middleman to get a lot of this info. So I convinced the consignment guy to put me in touch with the actual owner of the car. And it turns out it wasn't actually the owner. It was the husband of the owner of the car. And the owner actually used this as like a commuter car, funnily enough. And they were technically the first owners. It was registered as like a business vehicle first. And she just kind of drove it to and back from work and just wasn't driving it. So she decided to sell it. And it's wild because they did this full kit on it. And the husband did all the maintenance. And he was the one I was talking to. Oil changes, he had all the records for. He was super knowledgeable about all the maintenance, and I felt really good about the condition of the car, so I decided to pull the trigger. But it was a really weird kind of arrangement, and the husband raced Lotuses too, which was also really interesting. So he's pretty knowledgeable from like a race car.
General car standpoint.
So,
I can't believe that this was a commuter. This is like the rowdiest, like least fuel efficient, worst car. I mean, not worst.
This is
awesome,
the most fuel efficient car I have had, I think, ever.
This is an absurd statement.
Because my E36 got terrible gas mileage. I was looking at like 14, 15, I think, most of the time.
The GTI had to have better.
No, the GTI.
Okay.
I didn't even look at the GTI's gas. I had a 2003 Golf GTI 337 edition, and that car was obviously the 1.8T, so that little 4-cylinder turbo was probably getting pretty darn good gas mileage. But the M3 got maybe 14, 15, and on my little journey yesterday for about 4 hours, I got about 18, 19 miles to the gallon on E85, which I'm pretty happy with. That's better than the M5 and the M3 for the most part. So overall, I've been really impressed. I have not really found anything about this car that has been sort of a disappointment or something that has detracted from...
Really? Nothing? Or not yet?
Not yet, at least. I mean, the car is really well sorted. Like, I have no complaints with the seller and kind of how they communicated the condition to me.
Not even the tint?
They installed some window tint that I actually wasn't a huge fan of, but like it's a really minor thing. They installed a like limo, it seemed really dark, but
it's really dark
tint strip on the front windshield, and that I removed instantly. I mean, it was installed well, but it was just, it's a tint strip, and I hate having those in a car. And the whole windows are all tinted really dark too, so I'm gonna get the windows retinted next week. But the car itself has really impressed me, and so is the kind of condition as the owner described it to me. Whew. Wow, that actually got the majority of the sit off.
Wow.
We can now fill up our buckets, and what we're gonna do for this wash is we're gonna do as kind of a pre-wash, I'm going to soak it in GSF with a little bit of a APC, which is just Green Star from Kachikemi also. And then I'm not going to rinse before that, so that's going to kind of be our, let's get the dirt off and get it ready for kind of a contact wash. Then we're going to rinse, and we're going to use the Obsessed Garage decontamination soap, and that's going to strip off any waxes or coatings the previous owner may have had on it. And the reason we're doing that is just to make it a little bit more ready to go for our own coating when we put that on. And our own coating is just going to be technician's choice again for now until I do a more legit full ceramic coating. You might think it's all suds and fun, but it's not. It's grueling and frustrating.
I don't think I've ever seen someone washing a car and thought, man, that looks like suds and fun.
It's kind of what I do. Why I got into this.
I wish the water was heated. I think that would make everything so much more pleasant detailing.
You do that. And if you're detailing in like a cold East Coast state where people have mud and ice and stuff, they'll use like heated water in their pressure washers, especially under like fender liners and things to really get tough grime off. That is not a thing of your imagination.
Ooh.
I am going to use my little baby detailing brush to get in some of the nooks and crannies and make sure everything is all good before we do the full contact wash. And this is a fun part to just kind of figure out where all the nooks and crannies are, these grills, things like that. This car, I'm assuming there's a lot more area for...
It's a much larger car than I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah, this car is huge. It's heavy. It is big, it is wide, and it doesn't feel that way when you're driving it, which is great and something I was kind of concerned about. But it is a very big car, and it's tall. I think that's one of the surprises, too, that not a lot of people realize is this is a big, tall
Yeah, the seating
car.
position is really comfy. Like, compared to the FRS, you have to duck down so much less.
The M3 sat pretty high, and I thought this car would sit significantly lower, but I think this car sits as high, if not higher, than our German friend, which is kind of crazy to think about. But honestly, this car feels so unbelievably nimble. It's just amazing to me that you can just whip this car around any turn at really any speed, and it will say, okay, and it won't roll, and the bolstering in the seats is probably one of my favorite things about this car, just because it's really tight. And I think a lot of people complain about it and they say, oh, this is not a car made for big men. And fortunately, me being a small man, am having a very nice time in these seats. But I don't know, I think I was a little concerned. This is my first non-German car. I've had a E36, a GTI, an E92, an M5, another E92, and now this, and I was a little concerned. I was like, am I gonna like a non-German luxury car? And I absolutely do. I really love this car. And it has a lot of the Nissan comforts. I think the funniest thing about this, air conditioning and the sunglasses holder, the sound system I like. There's just like a lot of little stupid things. And the cup holders. I can put a full-sized, V8 juiced diameter drink in the cup holder, which is insane to me.
You can finally drink a liquid that's not V8 or Red Bull.
Yes, exactly. This paint isn't pretty good. This paint is pretty smooth. I was thinking of doing a decon, but I might not. I might just do the iron remover, and I can save a clay kind of ordeal for later. The visibility on this car is actually pretty good. I was a little concerned that the rear visibility would be non-existent, because when I drove the new Supra, that was overwhelmingly the case. The visibility on that car was absolutely terrible, and I was concerned I would be able to see nothing out of the rear and have a really collapsed front view. Front visibility is good. Rear visibility, I got to get used to having a wing behind me.
Yeah.
The rear view camera, terrible.
Oh, it's atrocious.
The rear view camera is overwhelmingly the worst rear view camera I've ever had. Maybe this wash will clean it.
I don't think your cleaning will help the resolution.
It's very blurry. It seems like there's like fog. It's like you took your car into a shower and it's like steamed up the rear view. Because
the weirdest thing to me is there's no like guidelines by default. You have to press a button.
You have to press view. The UI on the screen is not good. That is one of the more disappointing features about this car for me. But honestly, a small irk. I was concerned like the infotainment, like that's always a big thing for me, right? Like I always do like a CarPlay retrofit in all of my cars, and I want to get all the latest tech I can. And for BMW, that's not the worst thing ever, because it's pretty well supported and there are a lot of pretty good aftermarket solutions for a lot of this stuff. But for Nissan, it's harder, and there don't seem to be anyone who's like the super reputable source for kind of like aftermarket electronics. Like they have the T-Rex Pro, seems to be the most popular, but it doesn't seem great from what I can see, and it's pretty invasive as far as like changing things out. So
you have to tear apart the dash.
Yeah, you got to tear apart the dash, which I'm not super thrilled to do. But the thing though that I think would kill it for me is I like the little gauges from the factory, and I think that's the biggest sell of that screen for me, and I think I'm probably going to keep that the way it is.
Unleaded Super 93.
We don't even have the minimum.
Yeah.
Here in California.
That's a tough look.
So I haven't put anything other than E85 into this car, because this is on an E85/93 tune. That's kind of the biggest discovery piece I'm going to have to do, is figuring out what the tune is. And then I think I'm probably going to find someone to retune the car and do a like California 91/93 tune, or California 91/E85 tune that sort of adapts to the ethanol content. Mm-hmm. Because right now there's pretty good E85 in San Diego, honestly. But if I were to not have an E85 station, I would like to be able to put something in the car without having to worry about like an octane booster or something of that nature. I honestly think this paint is pretty smooth.
Are you gonna not?
I might not do any decon. I'm usually a big proponent of air drying only, but if you have no variety of coating on your car, it is a miserable endeavor, so we're just gonna towel dry it for now. I am so overwhelmingly happy with how the kind of initial clean has gone, just because this car looks so much whiter and it just overall looks so much shinier, and it is so nice. So I'm excited to put a little topper on this and kind of see how it really looks once it's super dry and glossy and slick.
Do you stand by your no decontamination step?
Yes.
Okay.
This paint is in really good shape. And again, it's going to get paint corrected in a week from now. So this is more a for fun wash than anything. The previous owners probably didn't wash the car very often, but when they did, they probably did a really good job. Mm-hmm. So my guess is it's probably acquired a lot of soot and gunk from just kind of sitting for a long time. That's the funny thing about these cars is soot is such a big, everyone always is talking about soot. It's like, how is the soot with this exhaust? Because people are tuning them like crazy.
Oh.
And most people aren't running catted setups and things
yeah.
like that. And I watched a like UK GTR meet thing where it was a bunch of GTRs leaving a car meet, and all of them did big black clouds of
Just super
soot.
rich.
Yeah, just running super rich. I'm sure these guys all have crazy tunes. I bet a bunch of them have flame tunes that are either destroying their cats or not going through them. So there's that to think about. These wheels are really growing on me though. I think I was a big hater. I thought they looked like hubcaps originally, and they still kind of do. That's because I think how flat-faced they are and like how much is going on. I think usually you go to like Pep Boys and you see hubcaps. The style kind of reminds me of this, which I think is partially why I was like, let's get rid of these instantly.
I absolutely suck at cleaning glass. Even like Windexing a mirror, I am so bad at it.
I think the thing that is hard to realize when you're cleaning glass, and I think I have this epiphany a lot, is you need a lot less product than you think you need.
Really?
Yeah, because it like spreads around pretty quickly, and if it doesn't evaporate super quick, it just kind of smudges around, and you keep wiping and you keep wiping, and you feel like you're never satisfied. But like I've found if I use less product, I'm very happy with the result usually. But will say it, and this might be a hot take for the internet, but I like the sound of this better than I like the sound of the S65 overall. I think I thought this was iron remover. That was
that would have been sad.
game over sort of moment. But I like the sound of this engine better than the S65 overall for the reason that I think just kind of banging through gears, something about this is just so intoxicating. I think downshifts in the S65 are unreal and will forever be unreal.
Yeah, it's hard to beat the downshifts in that car.
Yeah.
Those were aggressive.
They're very aggressive, and I didn't even have a full exhaust, and they were kind of incredible. But on this car, just something about like banging through gears and hearing the turbo noises is just something else. And I think I'm definitely a turbo car enjoyer. I think I've enjoyed my turbo cars more than I've enjoyed my non-turbo cars. Two of them, I think. My E36 was non-turbo, and the M3. Those are the only two ones. But I think I've enjoyed the turbo sound more. And I think I just enjoy like a turbo platform car more, just because I think there's more you can do with it from like a performance perspective.
Yeah, it's hard to just change a whole NA engine.
Yeah, because with the S65, I was like, oh, I could do some power mods. And I think the common thing people do is you can do a engine tune, a transmission tune. You can do like underdrive pulleys. And there's a few other things you can do to kind of crank out a little bit more power. But you only get maybe 40 horsepower max until you have to start doing more major mods and things. I don't know. The gains weren't worth it for the kind of investment you were putting in. And I mean, people do those big stroker engines, which is awesome. Yeah. But I'm not paying Steve Denon $40,000 to make my M3 more quick. But had I had a big garage and made double my salary, I probably would have kept that and gotten a GTR on top of it, just because that car was so good. There was something about driving that car that was just really special. And I mean, I think every car has that kind of specialness, but I think of the cars I will have in my lifetime, that will have more of that specialness relative to others.
I know you said these tires don't have that much life left on them, but don't they still have the nibs?
They do still have the nibs. I was told about 50%, and he measured when he sent it to me. And I mean, they're cracking a little bit.
Oh.
Barely. Because I think the problem with this car is it's like everything's in really good shape and everything is fairly new. It's just this car's been sitting for a really long time. And I think that is why a lot of these things are kind of wearing the way they are. Like the oil was changed at 400 miles ago or something.
But how many
But
years
it's been
ago is
2 or
that?
3 years. So it's
Well,
probably
it doesn't
okay.
really break down over time. I was reading
especially
stuff,
synthetic.
Yeah.
Oil.
There was the Blackstone Labs guys did a study on it, and they basically let some oil sit for like 5 years, and they're like, it's still fine, still good to go. But
yeah.
I think for peace of mind, it's nice to change your oil.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do full fluids on this car. I think I'm gonna do oil change, trans and diff, power steering, and then I'll do like a coolant flush maybe. Because that's the thing that's so crazy to me about this car coming from like BMW land. I was like, what gaskets do I need to change? When do I need to do all of these things? And it's like, just put fluids in it. And I was like, that is so uncomfortable for me. But like
to have a car that just works,
Yeah.
it doesn't break.
It's a Nissan.
I think the Michelin like checkered flag pattern thing they put on their tires looks really cool.
Yeah, I say this a lot. I think Porsche, on their cars, just stock, they have the nicest wheel and tire setups out of any car manufacturer by like a mile. And I think something about like a GT3 RS on like Pilot Sport 4s.
Oh no,
like,
give them Cup 2s.
Or Cup 2s, you're right.
Yeah.
With Cup 2s, because you can like, the Michelin logo is really prominent.
Yeah.
The like sidewalls, the perfect height. The fitment is immaculate just from the factory. My appreciation of Porsche has really gone up. Not like I was like, oh, I don't get it. But it was just like, I never paid much attention, rather. And I think the kind of internet as a whole is kind of paying more attention to Porsche as of late. And I don't know exactly what sparked that, but I definitely have noticed kind of the value and the kind of meaning of Porsche in the car world.
I think Porsche kind of came around to a lot of people because they're still just kind of a sports car manufacturer. And as more and more sports cars from other brands get killed off, it's kind of nice to know that like, oh, they still sell the most 911s or like,
Well, if they choose to sell you one.
Yeah, if they choose to sell you. Wait, that's really only like
GT3.
Yeah, and if you have that kind of money, you can let it slide. But and I mean, pretty sure you can just order. No,
No, you
I
can't.
guess
I
a
watched
real,
a TikTok
like, special
of a
edition.
guy trying to order a GT3 RS in the UK, and they wouldn't let him. Because they don't want people reselling them. That's the problem with Porsche. They don't want you to buy it and resell it because they want to like keep their crazy markup. So they want to like confirm that you're like a Porsche collector and that you'll like hold on to it. The engine bay on this car is so unbelievably clean. It is sort of ridiculous. But me being me, I'm going to do a little bit more to kind of get it totally dialed in. And again, this is not ideal because I'm kind of spraying other areas of the car, but you know, we make it work. I'm using Green Star from my friends at Koch Chemie, who I really like. They do a good job like branding their chemicals. And by branding, I just mean like, if you get like a Chemical Guys thing, they have like 10 variants of wheel cleaner. You get a Meguiar's thing, you get a Adams does a better job with it too, but like, I hate all these companies where they have a bunch of different variants of the same thing. And it's like, if one of them's good, you should just have one. Because they don't do a whole lot of different things. And I like Koch Chemie because it's very straightforward to understand what their products do. And they're usually pretty diluted. So they last for a good while as well. And GSF is by far my favorite. I really just like the way it foams.
The way it smells.
Yeah, the way it dwells in the paint I really like too. I think it's pretty effective at kind of dragging dirt off, and it's somewhat cost effective for what it is. Because I paid $100, I think, for my gallon of it, which is like, oh, you paid $100 for soap. And it's like, yeah, I've had it for 2.5 years.
The other nice thing about this car is that everyone uses R35 coil packs for everything else because apparently they just fit. I don't know what the deal is, but
yeah,
you can just shove them in like a lot of, I think even a lot of European engines you can use them. I know a lot of Japanese engines you can push a lot of power, but
it's funny to me driving this car now because I think the variety of cars I like look at and notice is really different. Like before, I see someone like a 330. I'm like, ooh, that guy's got nice wheels on that. You can hear he's got like a downpipe. But now that I have this car, I see like a G35, and I'm like, oh,
Hey!
my brother. It is time for the interior. The interior's in pretty good shape, honestly, but we're just going to give it a good deep clean just to kind of like a baseline. And so I'm going to start by doing a quick vacuum, and then we'll get to the rest. All right, time for the front. I like to do the seats last, and because I like to sit in here and get all my gross body oil all over the car before I clean it. And again, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna give everything a good scrub, everything a good little wipe down. I don't care too much about the plastics. The leather is really where I'm interested in doing my big clean. But I think there's a really good middle ground for kind of being a car enthusiast in California.
Yeah.
Where it's like you can have a fun car, but it doesn't need to be a straight piped crazy mobile. And
I just wish there was like a, I'll pay like $200 more to register this car as like an enthusiast, and you like have the sniffer smog only or something.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're not polluting, if it's like the stock car, but you've swapped out the intakes and you just have a like cat later on
yeah. That's the thing that bothers me about
run.
California. It's just the visual and sort of they do everything but the sniffer now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they don't care really what you're polluting. They just really care what you've done. And I mean, granted, that's probably a nice roundabout way to kind of prove that.
I think the sniffer was just a much longer process.
And you needed a dyno. And
because we had the first car that I drove regularly, it was a 98 Honda Accord.
Mm-hmm.
And anything pre-2000 gets the sniffer.
Yep.
But it was awesome because that car always had a check engine light.
Mm-hmm.
And we just would like undo the battery and redo the battery to get it to go away.
Okay.
And since they didn't really, get the full like OBD reader for that era car, you could get away with that. But nowadays it's like, hey, did you undo your battery in the last like month?
Yeah, do this crazy convoluted reset procedure, which we're currently doing with the Odyssey. Time to do the conditioner. Again, I'm just gonna do everything that's not the seat first because it makes your life so much easier. And these little chemical, I don't know who I got these from. These little like microfiber foam block things. These are great. These are like my favorite things ever. You can use them for everything. You can apply ceramic coating with them. You can put
Leather
conditioner
cleaner.
on your door panels really easily. And they're easy. You can like squeeze them and get them in tighter little areas. They're easy to clean. You have to clean them quickly. That's the only major issue is the stuff will like harden on them pretty easily. So you have to be pretty diligent about putting them in the wash once you're done. But once you do that, it's pretty nice. And that other annoying thing about this conditioner is if you get it on something that is not your intended surface, it is sort of annoying to buff out. But I think I've gotten my technique down at this point. Patrick is kind of standing menacingly to my side. He looks like a security guard protecting me from any
invaders.
Any
would-be GT-R thieves. Are these a commonly
I was
stolen
just
car?
about to ask that.
I would assume that they are.
But there are very few of them. So you probably
there are
hear
very
about
few of them, but it is also a big Nissan.
Yeah.
That was the problem with like S2000s. Those got stolen all the time because if you could hotwire a Civic, you could hotwire an S2000.
Oh.
And that was kind of a big problem because there are a ton of Civics.
Yeah. That makes sense. But I think with these cars, you never see them.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the statistics
It's funny you mentioned that because I went for a run today.
I know.
That was like 10 minutes, and I saw a GT-R that was not this. So there must be... And there's one that's, I Oh,
We saw it, and
Yeah.
you will see it in the video that we posted tomorrow, which will be last week in your time. All right, now it is time for the most fun part, which is cleaning the driver's seat, and this should make a pretty noticeable difference, just because it's always oily and it's usually the most just kind of grody, and this should really bring it back to life, and it'll be nice and slippery and slidey when I go down and sit on it, and that is always fun. When I was younger, funnily enough, I just used to like washing cars all the time, and I would wash my parents' cars for like allowance money and things.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I was obsessed with was these Armor All like leather wipes,
Yeah.
and they made everything really kind of slippery, slidey, and those were great. We bought those like madmen because they were so fun. My parents loved it, and I started detailing my neighbors' cars too. That was like before I knew what like detailing was, like washing and cleaning. But like I was doing that for a long time. My neighbors really liked it, and they had a bunch of small kids. So when I did that, that was a whole endeavor. Because there were Cheerios in the back.
Oh
and
gosh.
all that kind of stuff. Oop! Don't turn the seat heating on. The fact that this car's heated seat still kind of baffles me. But
I mean, that's a fairly old
it's an old feature, but it's sort of like a
feature.
nice to have extra. M3 didn't have them.
Huh.
The
Yeah.
M5 had heated and cooled seats, front and rear, which was insanity. I liked the cooled seats are great.
That's the one thing the American car companies do great, is they just throw like every comfort feature they can into a car.
Yes.
Heated, cooled seats, like ice cold AC, remote start.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised that the Germans don't have more remote, because Germany's cold.
Yeah.
So I would think, because that's the whole thing, is like you start your car when it's outside in the snow, but then everyone just uses it to like film their cold starts.
Yes. That's something people do in this car. People do like a sort of like a mod where you can do remote start. I think that gets into like Viper alarm territory.
Yeah,
For
if
me,
it's not from the factory, that's a weird thing to program in.
yes.
Because how often are you really going to need it? Especially here. Like, where it's going to get, maybe it's in the 50s sometimes. Ooh.
Yeah,
But-
exactly. I'm going to do tint, and we're going to do OptiCoat Pro. And get a nice 5-year ceramic coating going, which should be lovely. And then this car will even be more protected than it once was. We've done it. The interior, the exterior, the engine bay is all clean, dialed in, and I'm very happy. Something about just kind of like resetting a car, sort of, so I know any like spec and mark that it'll be mine, is sort of just a nice feeling. And it made a pretty big difference in the interior, is where I'm noticing it the most, is cleaning and conditioning the leather really makes a big difference to me, and just the feel of this car feels a lot newer, cleaner, and I'm really happy. And the exterior was really dirty from shipping, so getting that dialed into, the car is now West spec, I guess you could say, in terms of like cleanliness, and I'm very happy about that. Something about the clean, nice, my way car is really satisfying. So I hope you enjoyed watching. We're still dialing in the wash and talk format, so expect to see more of these in the future, and expect to see more stimulating conversation and satisfying detailing. So like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.